Thanks so much for joining us today. It is so good to have you back on the Sean S. Show. So today's episode is taking us to Marion County, Kansas. It's not a very big county. Its population is roughly around 11,000 people, and usually you don't expect small places like Marion County to end up in the news a lot. But they did make national headlines a few years ago, about 2 years in just a few weeks. And what happened basically out in Marion County was law enforcement decided to raid a small newspaper in Marion County, one of the news sources out there, and specifically in Marion, Kansas, whose population is about 2,000. They raided the Marion County Record. It's a small newsroom over in Marion, Kansas, and they seized computers, they seized devices, and they were tying it to allegations of identity theft. And what ended up happening is a reporter was injured in this. 2 veteran journalists were having medical issues. But the most tragic aspect of all of this was the co-owner, Joan Meyer, who died the next day. She was 98 years old. She passed away, and it was because of the stress induced by the raid. Now, I bring this up because Marion County, when they conducted this raid, it was related to the identity of some business owner in the community that the police decided to follow through on a raid. And they went in and they fully went through the newsroom and acquired through their things and looked through everything. And there was a lot of legal pushback to what was going on in Marion. They said it violated the First Amendment, obviously freedom of the press, and the Fourth Amendment, which protects from unreasonable search and seizure by law enforcement. So there was all of this back and forth going on. Ultimately, prosecutors, when they were looking at the case and they looked at the details of the case, they ultimately were not able to conclude any good reason for law enforcement to go and raid this small town newspaper for reporting, because they would not turn over information. The details I'm not very familiar with, but the point is law enforcement went in and they were attacking a newsroom. And it was identified by press freedom groups, like these big organizations. They were looking at Marion and they were pointing this out, and they were saying that law enforcement going in and raiding this small town newspaper is an attack on the freedom of press. Here is a local news report talking about all of this. Take a look.
Marion County Record, this is Sherry. May I help you?
The Marion County Record is racing to meet its deadline.
Look at them today. I mean, they've been working hard nonstop for the last 4 days on getting this paper out.
Less than a week after Marion police took their cell phones, computers, and files, the Record has recreated their newspaper from scratch. The paper's attorney, Bernie Rhodes, says they plan to meet their goal to print no matter what.
It's terribly impacted them. You know, we're back to the days of putting things together by hand, but it'll get done, I assure you.
Despite everything going on, Rhodes says publishing the news is more important now than ever.
We're not going to let the town bully prevent us from getting the news out, particularly the most important news this town has had in decades.
They have to meet a deadline by the end of the day for the paper to go to print in Hutchinson, but readers should expect a paper on Wednesday.
So, yeah, that's what happened in Marion County. They ended up publishing their edition of their newspaper, and the headline, the cover page said seized, but not silenced. That is important to note. I bring up the story of Marion County because it's like this local story of the police or law enforcement or the government going after an independent press. And at the time that this happened back in 2023, kind of shocking and kind of unimaginable that something like this could be happening. Because this is what you see in countries like Russia, what you see in countries like North Korea, where they're attacking the press. But that's what was going on in Marion County then. However, now we are starting to see that across the country. And usually when I do episodes like this talking about all of what's going on, usually it's because of something that's happened over a great period of time. That's how I've done it usually over the years. But you would be so surprised by the recent news just in the last few days since I even published my last episode on Wednesday, of all the attacks that have happened on a free, independent media and press, because it is going on and it is a very real threat in this country. And so it might have started with incidents like in Marion, but it's happening across the country. So let's talk about some of that. But before we do talk about some of those stories, why don't you take a couple of minutes to subscribe to my Substack? It's a great way to stay in touch with the show. I like to post full interviews on Substack, and one day we will also have a newsletter coming for you. You can also add your name to our mailing list so that you never miss a beat about the show. Also, follow the show on social media. You can follow us on Instagram at The Ishan S Show, and you can follow me at Real Ishan Shrivastava on TikTok and Instagram, and you can find me on Blue Sky at ishanshrivastava.bluesky.social. And also, one more thing, I have a very exciting interview with candidate for Congress and Cook County Commissioner Kevin Morrison. That's after this segment, so please stay tuned for that. You can also watch the full version of that interview on Substack. But anyway, we were just talking about Marion County and everything that's happened in Marion County, and I want to talk about how this new White House, this Trump administration, is now attacking a free and fair press. And they're doing it by attacking arguably one of the most unbiased and neutral news organizations in this country, I would argue maybe even in the world. So recently, the GOP-led House voted to strip PBS and NPR, the publicly funded news outlets, of about $1.1 billion in federal funding from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. And it's a part of this broader $9.4 billion package that is cutting foreign aid in addition to media. Now, the justification by the Republicans it's a pile of dog mess, like just saying that they're saying that PBS and NPR, some of the most trusted news organizations in this country, have an apparent left-wing bias going on in them, and that they're pushing some radical left-wing agenda on their viewers. I'm sorry. That is such a stupid thing to suggest. And I don't usually call things stupid here on the show, but unfortunately, this is one of those things. NPR and PBS, I mean, I'm a political junkie. I like to watch politics and all that sort of thing. NPR and PBS, in all honesty, are not always on a list of someone like me because they're too boring, because they are so strict to the facts type of people. They are so big on making sure that facts are followed, that we are telling the truth. Yes, there's always a spin when you watch CNN or MSNBC or Fox News. There's always a spin. But NPR and PBS, they make it a point to make sure that we are not having that sort of bias in the news coverage. And that is what we need in this time, unbiased, unfiltered news. Now, the problem is the GOP does a lot of things that don't garner good press coverage. I mean, if you're going to do a bad thing, the press isn't going to just airbrush over it. That's a very Stalin-esque type of thing to do. They're going to report on the facts, whether they're good or bad for you. Now, Republicans do a lot of, not great things when they're in power. And so when news companies highlight that, they go after them. They say that they have a left-wing bias because suddenly when they call them out for their stuff, it's bad. It's not good. It's ridiculous. So in my interview with Commissioner Morrison, we were talking about the cuts to NPR and PBS. Now, he noted that NPR gets about 10% of its funding from the federal government, so they will probably be able to handle some of it because a lot of it comes from donors, people that donate their money to NPR. But PBS is they're going to face at least some hurt as a result of this. And it's not just cutting news. PBS obviously has a great news program, but PBS also has a lot of educational content. And I don't know about how many of you watched PBS Kids growing up. I watched PBS Kids growing up. I know a lot of people that did. There is educational programming on PBS, informational programming on PBS, so many different types of programs that benefit the community. Sesame Street, you know Sesame Street, Elmo, Big Bird, all of that, all the fun crew. Yeah, apparently Elmo is now some agent of the left wing and is indoctrinating kids. What? So it's going to cut the funding that PBS is going to be losing as a result of money being clawed back by the by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Shows like Sesame Street are going to lose money. They're going to lose visibility. They're going to lose access to audiences. There are kids in this country that get free television because of PBS, and it's educational content that benefits them. The Republican Party, for some reason, feeling so threatened by the truth sometimes when they are highlighted, has decided to completely cut the funding. $1.1 billion being stripped of NPR and PBS. That's something that they just voted on. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that this is what they decide to pick their battles on. But it's part of a broader attack on the free press. You know, last episode we were talking about the whole Epstein stuff that's been going on in MAGA world, and how Donald Trump is really not disclosing a lot of things. He's kind of badgering around it, and many of his supporters feel very betrayed. I can't remember if it's the Washington Post or the New York Times, but they put up this really neat graphic of Trump world showing who exactly everyone's positions. And it's very insightful, because you get to see how people are disagreeing. And there is a fracture in the MAGA movement because they are really shocked by all of this. I mean, I'm not surprised that Trump lied to them, as I said, but they sure as heck are. Anyway, the Wall Street Journal after this, the Wall Street Journal posted this news article from good journalism that looked into something and alleged that there was this lewd sketch that Donald Trump drew in a note to Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, they used to be friends back in the day. That is a fact. And so apparently for his birthday or something like that, Trump sent Epstein allegedly drew a picture for him. I'm not going to go into the details because I still like to keep things family friendly out here. I mean, maybe we're talking about this, so it's not, but I'm not going to go into the details of what's in that picture, but I'm sure you can go do your research. Anyway, Trump sued the Wall Street Journal. Apparently he was very triggered and upset that the Wall Street Journal posted this, and so he sued the Wall Street Journal for libel. I'm going to give you a quick civics lesson here. Freedom of speech is not absolute in this country. There are some limitations on it, such as the fact that you cannot defame someone or attack someone that hurts their image. And that's called, and part of that includes libel. Libel comes under that definition. And so Trump has sued the Wall Street Journal for $10 billion, for $10 billion with a B dollars, citing actual malice. He's suggesting that there's actual malice. And so in order for Trump's legal team to actually win this, they're going to have to prove that the Wall Street Journal has undertaken actual malice in their publication of this story. And I'll tell you how journalism works. Journalism works because facts come to a journalist. The journalist publishes those facts for the audience to see. So if there's malice in that, that's a broader discussion, but it's going to be a little bit harder for President Trump to prove it because he's a public figure. And so proving that actual malice does become a little more complicated. But the fact of the matter is that President Trump has decided to sue a news outlet because they published something he did not like that was not very complimentary. And I mean, he has very much denied that the accuracy of this. He said he doesn't draw pictures. He doesn't draw pictures. So, he doesn't draw pictures. So no need to worry. So the Wall Street Journal, for their part, is standing by their reporters and is standing with their right to cover public figures and political figures. Here's another thing. So ABC, when they there was this suit that Trump sued ABC for an interview with their George Stephanopoulos, and there was about a $15 million lawsuit over a statement implying that Trump had been found civilly liable for raping E. Jean Carroll, someone who had sued him, and Trump sued ABC because George Stephanopoulos implied something like that. Ultimately, it did succeed in court, and so ABC had to pay $15 million to Trump, but they did not apologize, I believe. I don't think they had to apologize, but they did not. They just chose to settle instead of like going through the whole court stuff. And so $15 million was lost. So that set a precedent for Trump attacking the media. That was one of the first times that Trump really used the legal system against the media. Recently, in July, so this month actually, CBS found itself in a lawsuit with President Trump. And it was tied to, so 60 Minutes on CBS does this every presidential election. They interview both of the presidential candidates from both parties. It's called the 60 Minutes interview. And so they allege that when Kamala Harris had her interview, that there was alleged defamation with CBS interviewing in their interview with her because, I don't know, Kamala Harris is a political candidate, and so she's allowed to criticize her opponent for being not a great candidate. So Trump sued CBS, and I should note that Trump refused to actually go on that 60 Minutes interview. Many presidential candidates on both sides of the aisle have gone through that every 4 years. Trump decided that he didn't want to go, and maybe it's because he was scared to be asked questions that he didn't like. Anyway, so Trump sued. It was a $16 million settlement that ended up happening. And so there's a lot of broader implications in that CBS thing. They didn't apologize, but it's a line of press censorship because, again, freedom of the press is under attack in this country. That $16 million lawsuit against CBS was for doing their job. They were just honestly covering the presidential election. And Donald Trump did not like their coverage of that. And so he decided to go after them, $16 million worth. And we don't have all the details about this whole thing. We don't really have the full details. But just 2 days ago, we got some news out of a very loved and cherished institution of television, which is the Stephen Colbert Show on CBS. You might have heard that CBS is canceling Stephen Colbert's show, and that'll be happening in May. And they cited financial reasons and rising costs for the decision to cut Stephen Colbert's show. Now, financial reasons, you can say all you want. Okay, we can say financial reasons. Stephen Colbert's show is part of CBS, and so CBS is making this decision to cut his show. They are making that decision, a very conscious decision to cut his show, citing financial reasons. Now, financial reasons is why they're cutting the Stephen Colbert Show. I think late night has come to an end as we know it because Stephen Colbert's show was the top-rated late night show in this country on media, on television. He was the best performing late night television host. Now, it's no surprise that we should note that Stephen Colbert is a big critic of the guy in the White House. He is a big critic, and he even criticized the $16 million deal, the settlement that Trump had with CBS. Colbert was not very happy about it, and rightfully so. I don't think many people were happy about that whole settlement of theirs. And so a lot of people, it's like Senator Elizabeth Warren, Adam Schiff, the Writers Guild, and other late night folks like Jimmy Fallon have raised concerns about whether this was a politically motivated attack. Did CBS make this decision, or was this decision made for CBS? Was financial concerns the official line and something else deeper? I don't know. But it's definitely not, this is definitely not good news that this has happened. Because again, Stephen Colbert's show has been an institution on our television screens for so long. And a liberal voice, a trusted liberal voice in media. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a trusted conservative voice or a trusted liberal voice. You all have the same right to say what you want. And so on that side of the aisle, Stephen Colbert was a trusted voice. And the Trump administration, maybe, I'm just saying maybe, I'm not trying to allege anything, but maybe they didn't like what Stephen Colbert had to say about the president. And so the president obviously didn't like a lot of what he had to say. But anyway, I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty of all of that. But there is an attack on a free press in this country. I mean, look, I'm in this space, I guess, myself with this show, and I do often think about what this administration is doing. And I do wonder sometimes, like, how sustainable this path can be. Is it going to be safe? But I'm not going to let it, scare me. And I know a lot of people in this space are not going to let it scare them either, because the truth matters. And there should be a record being kept. There should be a record that is kept of all of this. Because if we don't use our voices, that's how we lose things. That's how we lose a way of life that I think we all can appreciate. And so it's very important that we continue to use our voices. And so, folks, I always say that we just have to continue to speak up. Like I said, the Marion Records news headline cover page, it says seized, but not silenced. And I think that's what we need to be doing now. They may seize things, they may attack us, but we will not be silenced. We will not be silenced. My interview with Commissioner Kevin Morrison is next. It's a great conversation. Please stick around for that. And if you want to watch the full version of my interview with him, you can go to my Substack, and I'll link it down below so that you can go check that out. But we'll see you on the other side of this. So here on the Ishan S Show, we love to give a great importance to candidates who are running up and down the ballot, because as I like to say, candidates everywhere on your ballot are going to impact your life in so many different ways. They make a lot of decisions about your everyday life. And so it's always important to shine a light on the people and the folks that are running. And so, as you might know, we've had candidates for Congress on over the past few weeks, and we will continue to have a few more, because I think it's really important to highlight the folks who we are sending to DC, because of course, Republicans are doing so much in the House of Representatives and the Senate right now that are hurting so many everyday Americans. I mean, we just talked about in our episode today how they are cutting PBS and NPR funding because of some left-wing agenda. It's strange things that they do. And so we have to really talk about the people that are running to combat this. And so my guest for today's episode is one of those people running to replace Representative Raja Krishnamurthy, who is running for U.S. Senate now in the 8th District over here. He is a Cook County Commissioner for the 15th District and a very active member of the local community. So here to talk about his election, his background, the headlines, and a lot more, I'm joined by Cook County Commissioner Kevin Morrison. Commissioner Morrison, thank you so much for joining us here at the Ishan S Show.
Thank you so much, Ishan, for having me here. First and foremost, it has been an honor getting to know you and seeing you speak and lead in this moment. It has really been inspiring for me to see another younger voice who is involved and cares about our future.
Thank you so much for that. And of course, it is an honor to have you on as well. Now, before we get into our interview, why don't you take a couple minutes to introduce yourself to my audience?
Well, thank you so much. So I grew up in Elk Grove Village, so I'm literally currently representing the communities where I grew up, which is an honor that as a openly LGBT person, I could never have imagined growing up in the Northwest suburbs. I'm so glad that the Northwest and Western suburbs that I'm now going to be running in have become such more welcoming places. So I grew up in Elk Grove, went to all local public schools, graduated of Conan High School, then went on to go to DePaul University, where I studied political science and environmental science. And this past December, graduated law school after going to school part-time for the last 5.5 years and taking night classes. So when I was elected in 2018, I made history. I was running against the chairman of the Illinois Republican Party, the guy who gave Illinois' delegates to Donald Trump in 2016. And after failing to find someone to run, because I was 27 at the time, I did not think people would take me seriously. People started saying, well, why don't you run? And that's what sparked my even consideration. And thank God my friends, family, and mentors had more faith in me than I had in myself. And so when I ran against the head of the Illinois Republican Party. I flipped a district blue for the first time in history, and I became the youngest and first openly LGBT person ever elected to the Cook County Board of Commissioners, where I've championed everything from language access, where we expanded language access on the ballot from 4 to 12 languages, making us the second most language inclusive county in the entire nation. I created a $100 million disaster relief fund, which renews annually to help all of our communities when we're faced with natural disaster. And I did something really unique by creating Cook County's brand new Department of Mental and Behavioral Health. And once fully operational, it will do something no county has yet to achieve, which is fill every gap in the mental and behavioral health space, which is something I want to see go nationwide. And I lead with passion. I lead with conviction. My heart is always on my sleeve. All I've ever wanted to do since I was 10 years old is help other people and make sure that all of us have a chance to succeed in the United States. And so it is an honor to be on here with you. And I look forward to getting to know those who view your show better along the way as well.
Well, thank you so much for that. Quite the resume you have over there. A lot of work that you've done in the community. So as you might know, we had one of your primary opponents, Yasmin Bankole, on the show earlier this week. And I asked her about what some of the issues she's been hearing at the doors and in the communities. What she told me was cuts to Medicare, Social Security, that's been top of mind. Is that what you are hearing at the doors right now? Or are you hearing maybe other things as well? What are you hearing, right? What is the biggest issue for this community?
What I've been hearing, yes, of course, cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, SNAP benefits, of course, are top of mind. But what I've been hearing the most is the fears our residents have at all the pressures that are being placed on our constitutional order. And I did not go to law school for 5.5 years to see our Constitution put in the paper shredder. And this current administration at every move is trying to attack our freedoms, our rights, and our civil liberties. And that terrifies me as well. But I'm also speaking to young folks who, I seriously believe it's millennial all the way down. Our generations have not seen an America where the American dream seems within reach. We are living in a moment where it is so hard to be able to get a job that pays enough to afford for your housing, to afford for your education, to allow yourself to get healthy foods, healthcare, and let's not even talk about having a vacation. And so our families care about being able to work a full work week and being able to live comfortably. That's something our parents' generations were able to do here in America. And it seems within our reach right in today's world. And that is something that needs to change.
I totally agree with you. I mean, the point that you made honestly resonates so much because, yeah, I mean, our generation's like, we've only known chaos. We've only known crisis. I talk to older folks who tell me like, whoa, you are growing up in a really hectic time. And I'm like, okay, and you didn't grow up in a time like that? And they would straight up just say no. Like they did not think about politics. They didn't think about what was going on in DC. And I think maybe that's because we had normal people back then. Not a lot of normal folks up in Capitol Hill these days. But I do see that, the constitutional issue, really, the crisis we are in. When it comes to addressing that, I think with this administration, that's really complicated. How do you go about dealing with something like that? Like, how do you, if you are elected and you are, say, in 2027 January, sitting in the House of Representatives, what does that look like? Like, what is your plan of action?
Well, my hope is that we regain control of the House of Representatives and we have a path to potentially win the lead in the US Senate as well. We need to return the power of the purse, which is given under the Constitution to our Congress. And it is something that Republican leaders today, they've kneecapped themselves. They've given away their constitutional rights as leaders who are supposed to be representing us on the ground, not wealthy interests or the president of the United States. That's why it's called checks and balances. And so what we need, for one, we need to regain the House and the Senate. We need to ensure that we're putting policies in place that backtrack the precedents that this president has put in place that have really tested our constitutional order. And that means, yes, clawing back on some of the executive authority that this president has stolen and ensuring that safeguards are put in place within our Congress, getting those bills through the finish line that protect us so they can never happen again.
When I'm thinking about this general primary field we have, it's a very young field, and you are, I mean, all of you are on the generally younger side, and so I talk to a lot of young folks in the community who are very excited to see folks like you and all the others running in this race. So for a young person that wants to get involved, either with your campaign or just even in politics in general, because that's a big bar in itself, how do you suggest someone go about doing that?
Yeah, well, especially if it's a younger individual who hasn't interested in possibly running for office or working for the government one day, volunteering for campaigns is the best way to meet either potential elected officials or current elected officials and get their numbers so that way they've got people who will vouch for them when they're looking for jobs. And I got obsessed with knocking doors and educating people on what important issues were going to be on their ballot, and it is crucial. I really enjoy having those face-to-face conversations. And so for folks out there who want to get involved with my campaign, please go to kevinmorrisonforcongress.com. And you can sign up to volunteer there. It also links with all of my social media pages. So I hope you'll give me a like and a follow. So even if I haven't earned your support just yet, please follow my race so that way you see what I'm up to. I'm literally going everywhere in this entire district, everywhere from Carpentersville down to St. Charles, from Schaumburg to Des Plaines, from Palatine down to Bloomingdale and Carpentersville. I was in Bloomingdale today with the Bloomingdale Township Democrats, picking up trash and helping out their organization this very morning. And if you want to get involved with other candidate campaigns or see what other opportunities there are, every one of us lives in a township in Illinois. So first and foremost, check out what your township you live in, and then look up who your township committee person is or township chair is. There's Democratic organizations all throughout every township that is going to be stumping from candidates from the top to the bottom of the ballot from now into petition season, which is August to October, and then onward to the primary in March through the general election in November.
Thank you for that plug. I tell people all the time, like, it is not hard. It seems like it's very difficult, but it is not usually very hard to really get there. It's just knowing the opportunity. So thank you for broadcasting that. And of course, like Commissioner Morrison said, if you want to get involved with his campaign, he provided those opportunities. And also township party organizations are also a great way to get involved. Let's switch gears a little bit. With a lot of stuff. It wouldn't be an Ishan S. Show interview if we didn't talk about the headlines. So in today's episode, we talked about the cuts that Republicans made to NPR, to PBS, and to foreign aid in general. I want to first talk about the cuts to PBS and NPR. They cut about $1 billion because of some left-wing agenda of nonpartisan, neutral public broadcasting. I just wanted to get your reaction to that news and what we should take away from that. Like, what should we read into this? What are Republicans trying to do when they do things like this?
They're exactly targeting one of our most unbiased areas where we can access news, which is NPR. I have NPR on my car all the time, and it is my belief that 10% of their funding comes from the federal government. So NPR will survive, but it's going to need people like us to invest more. So I actually donate to our local NPR station every single month. I've been doing it for years. You don't have to do a lot. $5, $10, $25, even $1 a month is going to help them be able to make sure that we get high quality, unbiased, and real news. And of course, they want to see us in an ecosystem where all we're getting is opinions and slant. And that's what you get with the Fox Newses of America, which have been so destructive. I have talked to way too many people who have been completely brainwashed. And it takes time, but the more information we have, the more power we have. And especially, I know it sometimes is difficult holding your anger when you're being met with people who just clearly have been lied to and believe it. But it takes time, and you could win these people back over. And back to your question, I'm more concerned about PBS. It's a more substantial amount of their funding that comes from our federal government. And what are they doing? They're attacking, again, another base of information, and also, some fun shows for our children. Like it is ridiculous. And you know, it just shows what is at stake when it comes to casting our vote and how important it is for us to get individuals into office who actually care about us, who want to invest in our futures.
Absolutely. Just a few more points that I want to touch. So on my show, I've talked a lot about the big ugly bill that Congress passed on President signed on 4th of July. That big ugly bill, as a reminder to viewers, cuts 17 million people off of their health care, 3 million people off of food assistance, robs kids of free school lunches. There's so much in the big ugly bill that has impacted a lot of people. Every time I talk to someone, I always ask them, what is something that you are paying attention to in the big ugly bill that maybe not everyone is talking about? I mean, I broadcast the healthcare stuff, but there's a litany of things. So what is something you are keeping track of in the big ugly bill that more people should be talking about, and how do we really go about reconciling with that?
Well, it is terrifying, the cuts that we're going to see and the lives that are going to be lost if this gets implemented. And you know what? Republicans are trying to play a fast one on all of us because most of the provisions do not go into place until after the midterms. And they don't want to own it because they know they're likely to lose the House and possibly the Senate in this next election. And if we win back both the House and Senate, we could potentially claw back some of these horrific cuts that might be realized if we do not win those majorities. So yeah, we need to keep the 8th district blue, but we need to flip a lot more seats too. And I think there's 24 Republicans who decided to vote for this bill who are all at risk of losing their seats in some of the most flippable, winnable districts across the nation. So we need to win all 24 plus more. And what I will say, what I am paying attention to is the potential over 500,000 Illinois residents who will lose their health insurance. That will potentially kneecap and collapse Cook County Health. So as a commissioner, we run the budget for the entire county. It's just over $9 billion. Over half of our dollars get spent on Cook County Health, which we operate 2 hospitals as well as 12 clinics all throughout the county. And over 50% of our funding comes from the federal government. If these cuts go into effect, we could potentially lose access to doing the care that we are doing today, which is the largest safety net hospital in the entire Midwestern United States. Not just in Illinois, but the entire Midwest. So that is going to amount to lives lost, and that would be terrifying and unacceptable. The second thing is the cuts to food assistance for kids when they're going to school. Because yeah, it's a brilliant idea that kids learn far better in their public education when they go to school hungry. It is ridiculous and it's evil. And you know what? It's hurting our families that are most at risk and most at need. And it's something that we must be mindful of. We must be sharing this information with our neighbors. We must be sharing it on our social media, and we must be pushing back and letting the public know Who owns these cuts? And that is the Republican Party, because not a single Democrat voted in favor of the bill.
And we are here at the show. We are going to keep reminding people that they are doing what they are doing. We have a listener base in Wisconsin, actually, in Wisconsin's 3rd district, come to find out. Derek Van Orden is sitting in Congress right now. He is voting a little wacko. I was just talking to Congressman Mark Pocan a few months ago, and he was saying that he is going into the 3rd district over in Wisconsin, holding those town halls because he's too scared to show up. It is congressmen, people like them, like Derek Van Orden, that Commissioner Morrison is talking about. They are all across the country. So keep informing yourself. But Commissioner Morrison, unfortunately, we are almost out of time. Thank you so much for joining us today. But before I do let you go, are there any parting thoughts that you'd like to share with my audience today?
Yeah, first and foremost, you're a rock star, and I hope I see you run for office one day, because I can't wait to support you. I know that your listener base is younger. I'm a millennial. I've literally read the Gen Z thesaurus, so I'm trying to educate myself on all the new language that did not exist when I was younger myself. But I'm 35 years old. I want to make a difference. I want to fight for you. I've had an open door policy as a county commissioner, and I'm going to do the same if given the vote and allowed to enter the halls of Congress. And I'm going to fight for my constituents every single day. I'm going to show up when there's attacks on our constitutional order. I was a little bit disappointed not to see Congress folk showing up in Wisconsin when a judge got arrested. I mean, that is a simple thing we could do with our bodies, our voices, and our presence. And we need our leaders to be standing up in this moment, because our younger generations feel like there's a void. And I feel compelled to try to fix Congress. I've been able to do unthinkable things here as a county commissioner. I got gender identity and reproductive health as protected classes for all 5.2 million Cook County residents. And I got our sole Republican to vote for the first time in support of reproductive health. And that is the importance of leadership and building relationships. So if you want to join me, I welcome you to my team. If you want to learn more, please go to my website, kevinmorrisonforcongress.com. And I hope I can count on your folks to come and help me get signatures as we go into petition season in August. And I thank you so much, Ashan.
Commissioner Kevin Morrison, running for Congress from Illinois' 8th Congressional District. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope to have you back on very soon.
Happy to come back. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that was my interview with Commissioner Kevin Morrison, running for Congress from Illinois' 8th Congressional District. It was a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us here today. If you liked my commentary, then please subscribe to the Ishan S Show, and why don't you go beyond that and subscribe to my Substack? It's a great way to stay in touch with the show, and we'll probably get that newsletter running soon. You can follow the show on Instagram at The Ishan S Show. You can follow me on Instagram at Real Ishan Shrivastava and on TikTok as well. And you can follow me on Blue Sky at ishanshrivastava.bluesky.social. Alrighty, thank you so much for joining us here for the Ishan S Show today. I am so excited for our interview on Wednesday. That is going to be with Speaker of the Illinois House of Representatives, Emanuel Chris Welsh. It is going to be a great interview that I am so excited to share with all of you. So please tune in on Wednesday to watch that. But yes, keep yourself informed, keep engaging, keep doing all of the good work. That is how we continue to keep this country as it is. Keep doing all of that. I'll see you in the next one.